Welcome back to Money Mastery Now, the channel that helps you take control of your money, one smart habit at a time. If you want to master your budget, crush debt, and build lasting wealth, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Let me ask you something. If your paycheck suddenly stopped tomorrow, how long could you keep your life going without panic? How long before rent becomes a problem? Before groceries feel like a luxury? Before you're swiping your credit card just to survive? It's a scary question. I know, but it's also a necessary one. Because emergencies don't ask for permission. They don't wait for a better time. They show up when you least expect them, and they rarely show up alone. That's why today's video is one of the most important conversations we'll ever have on this channel. We're talking about building an emergency fund, what it is, why you need one, and most importantly, how to figure out how much is truly enough for you. Not just some generic rule. Because here's the truth. Most people don't have an emergency fund at all. And even if they do, they're not really sure if it's enough. But by the end of this video, you will be. So take a deep breath. Grab something to write with if you want to follow along. And let's get into it. First things first, what exactly is an emergency fund? An emergency fund is a specific amount of money that you've set aside to cover unexpected, necessary expenses that you cannot delay or ignore. It's not for vacations. It's not for shopping sprees. And it's not for buying the latest phone. It's for real life, real problems. The kind that shake your routine and threaten your stability, like your car breaking down when you need it to get to work, or an unexpected medical bill that insurance didn't cover, or losing your job and needing to keep the lights on while you figure out your next step. An emergency fund isn't about luxury. It's about protection. It's your financial safety net. It says, I've got this. Even when life throws you a curveball, it gives you time to breathe, time to think, time to respond instead of react. Let me be really clear. An emergency fund is not a savings account for something fun. It's not the money you're setting aside for holiday gifts or travel or a new laptop. That's a different category. Those are planned expenses. This fund is for the unknown. So why does this matter so much? Because life is unpredictable. You know that. I know that. We've all lived through it. It's not a question of if an emergency will happen. It's a question of when, and when it does, you don't want your only option to be debt. Without an emergency fund, every crisis becomes a financial crisis. A flat tire turns into a maxed-out credit card. A dental emergency turns into months of payments plus interest. A temporary layoff becomes a long-term spiral. But when you have a cushion, you handle it. You fix the car. You pay the bill. You breathe and move on. Here's a number that might surprise you. According to a recent Federal Reserve study, nearly 40% of Americans wouldn't be able to cover a $400 emergency with cash. Think about that. Just $400 and almost half the country would need to borrow, sell something, or simply go without. That's not just a statistic. That's stress. That's fear. That's a paycheck-to-paycheck life where one bad day can ruin everything. Now let's flip that. Imagine having $1,000 in the bank just sitting there, untouched. You don't use it for gas or groceries. You don't dip into it for a night out. It's there for emergencies only. That $1,000 changes the way you sleep at night. It changes the way you respond to problems. It changes the way you walk through the world. And that's the goal of this video. To help you not just understand what an emergency fund is, but to start building one for yourself. One that's realistic. One that grows. One that actually fits your life. Because the right amount isn't the same for everyone. What's enough for a single person in a small apartment is very different from what a family of 4 needs. What works for someone with a stable job and great insurance is not enough for someone who's self-employed or supporting aging parents. There's no magic number that fits everyone. But there is a process to figure out what's right for you, and that's exactly what we'll do next. In the next part of this video, we'll talk about the 3 to 6 months rule, how to calculate your essential monthly expenses, and what factors might mean you need more or less in your fund. You're going to walk away with more than just motivation. You're going to walk away with a number, a plan, and a sense of control you might not have felt in a long time. So stay with me. Let's take the fear out of the unknown and replace it with a foundation you can build on. So now that we know what an emergency fund is and why it matters, the big question becomes, how much do you actually need? You've probably heard the standard advice before, save 3 to 6 months of living expenses. But what does that really mean? Where did that number come from? And how do you figure out what that looks like for you? Let's break it down. The 3 to 6 month rule is a simple, time-tested guideline. It means you want to save enough money to cover all of your essential expenses for at least 3 months, ideally 6. The idea is that if something major happens, like losing your job, you'll have a financial runway, a buffer, a period of time where you can focus on solving the problem without the immediate pressure of bills. But here's the thing. Not everyone needs the same amount, and not everyone has the same lifestyle. So instead of thinking in vague numbers, let's make this real. Start with one simple question. What are your essential monthly expenses? Not your total monthly spending. Not your lifestyle spending. Just the absolute necessities, the bills you must pay to stay afloat. So grab a calculator, or better yet, a piece of paper, and list out the basics. First, housing. That includes your rent or mortgage, property taxes, and insurance, if you own. Next, utilities. That means electricity, water, gas, internet, and maybe a basic phone plan. Then, food. Not dining out, not fancy ingredients, just groceries. What it costs to feed yourself and your family each month. Transportation is next. This could be gas, public transit, car insurance, or a car payment. Whatever you need to get to work, school, or essential appointments. Medical expenses also count. Insurance premiums, prescriptions, routine care, whatever you're consistently paying. And finally, debt payments. If you have student loans, minimum credit card payments, or anything else you must pay to avoid default or penalties, include them. Add all of those together. That number, that's your baseline monthly need. That's what it costs to keep your life going. Bare bones but functioning. Let's say your essential expenses total $2, $500 a month. Using the 3-month guideline, you'd aim for $7, $500, for 6 months. It's 15. Surodo. That's your target. But maybe your number is higher or lower. That's okay. The goal isn't to meet someone else's number, it's to meet your own life's needs. Now, who should aim for 3 months? And who should aim for 6 or more? Let's start with the people who might be okay with 3 months. If you have a stable, full-time job with good benefits, and you've been at the company for a while, 3 months might be a solid starting point. If you're single, have no kids, and your expenses are predictable, 3 months can give you breathing room. But if your income is variable, maybe you're a freelancer, a gig worker, or self-employed, then 6 months is safer. You don't have the same job security. You need a longer runway between paychecks. If your work is seasonal or unpredictable, more savings equals more security. If you have dependents, kids, aging parents, a partner who relies on your income, 6 months is a minimum. Emergencies don't just affect you. They affect everyone who depends on you. More people means more responsibilities and more reasons to prepare. If you have chronic health conditions or limited insurance coverage, you'll also want a larger fund. Medical surprises can be some of the most expensive emergencies. And the last thing you want is to delay care because you can't afford it. And here's one more category. If you're planning a big transition like starting a business, changing careers, or going back to school, a larger emergency fund can make that shift a lot less stressful. Think of it as permission to take a calculated risk without losing your footing. Now, maybe those numbers 3 months, 6 months feel overwhelming. Maybe you did the math and thought, there's no way I can save that much. And that's okay, because this is not a sprint. You're not expected to save 6 months of expenses overnight. The goal is to start. Even if that means your first target is $500, then $1 on one, then 1 month's worth. You build it one small step at a time. What matters most is consistency, a little progress every paycheck, a little sacrifice today for a lot of peace tomorrow. And the truth is, once you start, something shifts. You begin to feel different, more prepared, more confident. You stop fearing the unknown and start trusting yourself to handle it. So here's your next step. Take some time today to calculate your baseline expenses. Don't guess. Pull up your bank statements. Look at what you've actually been spending. Focus only on the essentials. Write down your monthly number. Then multiply it by 3. Then by 6. Those are your 2 milestones. That's the path. In the next part of this video, we'll talk about how to start building that emergency fund, especially if your income is tight or you feel like you have no extra money to save. We'll look at small strategies that make a big difference and simple systems that make saving automatic. Because knowing your number is powerful, but building toward it, that's what makes it real. Let's keep going. So, you've calculated your monthly essentials. You know your 3-month goal. You even have a number in your head. But now comes the hard part. How do you actually start saving that money, especially when there's not much to spare? Let me say something clearly right up front. You do not need a high income to build an emergency fund. You don't need a big bonus or a perfect budget. You just need to start small and stay consistent. Too often, people believe they can't save unless they can save a lot. So they wait and wait. They wait for a raise. They wait for their bills to go down. They wait for the right time. But here's the truth. Waiting doesn't build security. Action does. Even tiny action. That's why your first milestone isn't $10. No. Or even 5. No renerty. It's $500. That's it. That might not sound like much, but it's enough to cover a flat tire, a trip to urgent care, or a few days of groceries during a gap in income. It's enough to keep you from swiping your credit card the next time life throws you off balance. So make that your first goal. And once you reach it, raise the bar to $1, then to 1 month of essentials, then 2. It builds over time, like layers of protection. Now, the question becomes, where do you find the money to save? Let's look at a few practical strategies. You won't need all of them, but one might be just right for you. First, start with percentages, not amounts. Instead of trying to save $100 a month, commit to saving 5% of any income that comes in. If you make $800 this month, that's $40. If next month you make $1, it's $60. This approach adjusts to your income and still moves you forward. Second, use automatic transfers. Set up your bank account to move a small amount of money, maybe $10 or $25, from checking to savings every week or every payday. Automation is powerful. It removes the need for willpower. It happens quietly in the background. And even if you think, that's too small to matter, remember this. Saving $25 a week is $100 a month. That's $1, $200 in a year. Third, redirect found money. Got a refund, tax return, birthday cash, sold something online. Instead of spending all of it, put at least half into your emergency fund. Unexpected money is the perfect opportunity to strengthen your safety net without cutting your routine budget. Fourth, look for temporary cutbacks, not forever. Just for now. Can you pause a subscription for 2 months? Can you do one no-spend weekend per month? Can you cut takeout from 3 times a week to 1? These aren't sacrifices for life. They're short-term choices with long-term impact. Let's say you save $40 a month by cooking at home more often. That's $480 in a year. That alone gets you nearly to your first $500. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be intentional. And here's something important. Make your savings visible. Whether it's a separate savings account, a jar in your kitchen, or a tracker on your fridge. Find a way to see your progress. When you can see your fund grow, even slowly, It builds momentum. Some people like to use visual savings challenges, color in one block for every $50 saved, or mark off milestones like first $100, halfway to 500, one full paycheck. These small celebrations matter because they remind you that something is happening, even if it's happening slowly. And please, don't fall into the trap of comparing your progress to anyone else's. This is your journey, your life, your numbers. If it takes you 6 months to save $500, that's still progress. That's still you taking care of your future. Now, what if your income really is unpredictable? You're a freelancer, a gig worker, or someone whose paycheck fluctuates. Then build a rule. Every time money comes in, 10% goes into savings, no matter how big or small. You won't always know when the next check is coming, but you'll know you're building a cushion for when it doesn't. And if even 10% feels impossible, start with 5, or even 1. What matters is the habit. Because here's the truth. Saving money isn't just about money. It's about confidence. It's about proving to yourself that you can be the kind of person who plans ahead, who prepares, who handles life with clarity instead of panic. And when you do that, something amazing happens. You stop feeling helpless and you start feeling powerful. So if you're starting from zero today, I want you to know that's okay. Everyone starts somewhere. Pick your first number. Maybe it's 100. Maybe 500. Whatever feels doable. Then look for the smallest action you can take this week to move toward it. Open a separate savings account. Set up that auto transfer. Sell something you no longer use. Skip one small luxury and redirect the money. It doesn't have to be dramatic. It just has to begin. In the next part of this video, we're going to talk about where to keep your emergency fund. Because where you store that money matters almost as much as saving it in the first place. We'll look at smart, safe places to keep it and common mistakes to avoid. So stick with me. You've already done the hardest part, starting. Now let's protect your progress. Now that you've started building your emergency fund, maybe you've saved your first $500 or even your first month of expenses, you might be wondering, where exactly should I keep this money? It's a great question, because where you keep your emergency fund is almost as important as building it in the first place. Let's talk about that. An emergency fund needs to be 3 things. It needs to be safe. It needs to be liquid. And it needs to be separate. Let's start with safe. You don't want to put your emergency savings into something that can lose value. This is not investment money. It's protection money. You're not trying to grow it with high risk. You're trying to preserve it. That means no stocks, no crypto, no index funds, not even bonds. You need it to be stable so that if an emergency hits tomorrow, your money is still there, all of it. Second, it needs to be liquid. That means you need to be able to access it quickly, without penalties, delays, or jumping through hoops. If your car breaks down, you don't want to wait 3 days for a transfer. If you lose your job, you don't want your money tied up in an account that requires notice to withdraw. And third, it needs to be separate. You should not keep your emergency fund in your regular checking account. When your savings sit in the same place as your daily spending, it's too easy to dip into it. You start thinking, well, I'll just use a little bit for this concert ticket or I'll replace it next month. And before you know it, the fund is gone. So what's the best place to keep it? For most people, the ideal choice is a high-yield savings account at an online bank. Why online? Because online banks usually offer higher interest rates than traditional banks. You won't get rich from the interest, but every bit helps. Right now, many high-yield savings accounts are offering interest rates between 4 and 5%. That means your emergency fund isn't just sitting there, it's earning while it waits. These accounts are also FDIC insured. That means your money is protected up to $250. No realm. And most of them let you transfer money back to your checking account within 1 to 2 business days, fast enough for most emergencies. Even better, because they're separate from your regular bank, you're less likely to accidentally use the money. Now, You might be thinking, but what if I need the money immediately? Like the same day? That's a good point. And that's why some people like to use a two-tier system. Here's how it works. Tier 1 is your instant access emergency stash. This could be $200 or $300 in cash hidden safely at home, or a small amount in your regular bank account that you treat as off limits. This is for immediate needs: tow trucks, prescriptions, last-minute childcare. Tier 2 is your main emergency fund. That's the bigger amount, the 1 to 6 months of expenses sitting safely in your high-yield savings account, earning interest and protected from impulse spending. That way, you've got fast access when you need it, but you're also protecting the bulk of your fund from being too easy to spend. Some people ask, can I just leave my emergency fund in my regular savings account at my bank? And the answer is yes, you can, especially if you're just getting started and the balance is small. But keep in mind, most traditional savings accounts earn almost nothing in interest, and they're often connected to your checking account, which can tempt you to borrow from your emergency fund when you don't really need to. If you go this route, make sure to mentally separate the money. Give it a label in your banking app. Call it Do Not Touch, Emergency Only. That psychological barrier might sound silly, but it works. Now let's talk about what not to do. Don't keep your entire emergency fund in cash at home. A little cash is smart. A lot is risky. There's no insurance. There's risk of theft, loss, or damage. Plus, if it's too accessible, you're more likely to spend it. Don't invest your emergency fund. Yes, the stock market might offer higher returns, but it also brings higher risk. The last thing you want is to check your emergency fund during a downturn and realize 20% of it disappeared. And don't put it in a certificate of deposit or CD unless you absolutely understand the terms. Many CDs lock your money up for months or even years, and you could face penalties if you need to withdraw early. That defeats the purpose of an emergency fund. Here's a simple checklist to help you choose: is it safe? Is it liquid? Is it separate from your everyday money? If you can answer yes to all three, you're in a good place. And if you already have an emergency fund and you're thinking, I should probably move this to a better account, that's a great next step. Just remember, the goal isn't to maximize interest. It's to maximize reliability. Your emergency fund isn't supposed to be exciting. It's supposed to be boring, quiet, reliable, always there when you need it. Like a good umbrella, hopefully unused, but invaluable when the storm hits. In the next part of this video, we'll look at a real-life example of someone who built their emergency fund from scratch and used it to get through a financial crisis without going into debt. You'll see exactly how small steps added up to real security and how you can do the same. Let's meet James and learn from his story. Let me tell you about James. James is 31. He lives in Houston and works as a restaurant manager. He's good at what he does, organized, friendly, hardworking, but like a lot of people, he lives close to the edge. A few years ago, James had no savings. He wasn't reckless. He wasn't irresponsible. He just didn't have much left after rent, car payments, groceries, and trying to enjoy life a little. And honestly, he didn't think much about it until the day his car broke down. It was a Monday morning. He was heading to work like usual, running a few minutes late. He turned the key and nothing, not even a click. He tried again. Still nothing. His car was dead. He called a tow truck. Cost $95. The mechanic gave him the news. A failed alternator. Cost $540. Add in labor and taxes. James was looking at over $700. He didn't have it. He had $63 in checking, a few dollars on a credit card, and no one he could borrow from. He panicked. He felt ashamed. He called out of work and said it was a family emergency because somehow that felt less embarrassing than the truth. And that was the moment he realized something had to change. That weekend, James sat down with a notebook and wrote 3 words at the top of the page: emergency fund goal. He didn't know where to begin. He didn't even know how much to aim for. But he decided to start small. His first goal, $500, just enough to cover a car repair or an unexpected bill. He committed to saving $50 a month. That's it. It meant cutting back on Friday takeout, brewing coffee at home instead of grabbing it on the way to work, skipping a few nights out. But it was manageable. He set up an auto transfer, 25 every payday, into a separate savings account at an online bank. He labeled it emergency only. At first, it felt slow. After the first month, he had $50, then $100. It didn't seem like much. But then something shifted. 3 months in, he hit $150 and realized that was enough to cover the tow truck bill. 5 months in, he had $250 halfway to his goal. 8 months in, he crossed the $500 mark. And by the 1-year mark, he had over $700. And then life happened. A storm hit Houston hard that winter. Roads flooded. Power lines went down. James missed 4 days of work because the restaurant was closed. That meant a short paycheck. Meanwhile, his electricity bill doubled. And then his car, yes, again needed a new battery. Total cost of the week, about $430. And for the first time in his life, James didn't panic. He didn't reach for a credit card. He didn't call a friend. He didn't delay the repair. He opened his savings app. He transferred the money. He paid the bill. And then he smiled. Not because he lost money, but because he had power. He had prepared. That moment changed everything for James. Not just financially, but emotionally. He started to see himself differently. He wasn't just someone surviving paycheck to paycheck anymore. He was someone who planned, who protected himself, who had options. Today, James has nearly $3 in his emergency fund. That's more than a month of expenses. He's still working toward 3 months and he'll get there. But more importantly, he knows how. And he knows he can. So why am I telling you this story? Because James didn't win the lottery. He didn't get a giant bonus. He didn't make any dramatic changes. He just decided to start with $50 a month. And that's the message I want you to hear. You don't need to have everything figured out. You don't need thousands of dollars. You just need to begin. Small steps, small sacrifices, small wins. Those add up to real security. Your emergency fund isn't just about money. It's about peace of mind. It's about dignity. It's about being able to handle what life throws at you without fear or panic. So maybe today, you're where James was, living close to the edge. Not sure how to start. Maybe you feel a little ashamed of not having anything saved. That's okay. But don't stay there. You have the power to change your story just like James did. Pick your number. Set your goal. Make your first transfer even if it's $5. Then do it again next week. And the week after that. One day, life will throw something unexpected your way. And when it does, you'll be ready. In the final part of this video, we'll talk about something just as important as building your fund, knowing when to use it and how to protect it. Because your emergency fund is a tool. It's meant to be used, but only at the right time. Let's talk about when to break the glass. So you've done the work. You've started saving. You've protected the money. You've watched your emergency fund slowly grow maybe to $500, $1, nota, or more. Now comes a different kind of challenge. Knowing when to actually use it. Because here's the truth, building the fund is only half the battle. The other half is protecting it. And that means learning how to tell the difference between a real emergency and a strong temptation. Let's start with what qualifies as a real emergency. A real emergency is unexpected, necessary, urgent. It's something you didn't plan for. Something that must be dealt with. Something that can't be ignored or postponed without serious consequences. Let's go through a few examples of valid reasons to tap into your emergency fund. Job loss or major reduction in income. If you suddenly lose your paycheck or if your hours get cut and you can't cover your basic bills, this is exactly what your emergency fund is for. It gives you time to regroup, search for new work, and keep your essentials covered without going into debt. Medical emergencies, unexpected surgeries, hospital visits, ER copays, medication costs that insurance won't cover. These are all valid uses. Your health is non-negotiable. If it's a medical need that can't wait, your fund should step in. Essential car or home repairs. If your car breaks down and you need it to get to work, that counts. If your water heater explodes, your roof leaks, or your heater dies in the middle of winter, that's an emergency. Not fixing it could lead to bigger, more expensive problems. Unexpected travel for a family emergency. A sudden death in the family. A parent gets sick across the country. A child is in trouble and needs you immediately. Those are situations where spending the money is not only justified, it's necessary. The key here is urgency and necessity. But now let's flip it. Let's talk about what is not a good reason to use your emergency fund. Because this is where things get blurry. This is where your brain tries to trick you. Here are a few things that might feel urgent in the moment but really aren't emergencies. Upgrading your phone because yours is a little old. If it still works, it's not an emergency. Even if the new model is on sale. Holiday gifts, birthdays, or last-minute events. You knew the holidays were coming. You knew your friend's wedding was on the calendar. If you didn't plan for it, that doesn't make it an emergency, it makes it a budgeting oversight. A good sale on something you might need later. This one is sneaky. You tell yourself you're saving money by spending it now. But if it's not urgent and essential, it's not emergency fund material. Buying something because you're stressed, bored, or emotionally triggered. We've all been there. Bad day. Online shopping cart. Click. But emotions are not emergencies. Take a breath. Walk away. And reevaluate in 24 hours. So how do you stay disciplined? Here's one trick. Create an emergency fund use checklist. You can write it down or keep it in your phone. But every time you think about using the fund, ask yourself these 3 questions. Is this truly unexpected? Is this absolutely necessary? Is this time-sensitive and urgent? If you can't answer yes to all 3, don't touch the fund. Instead, ask, can I plan for this another way? Can I build a sinking fund for this expense in the future? Can I adjust my monthly budget? The point of this isn't to be rigid. It's to be smart. Your emergency fund is like a fire extinguisher. You don't break the glass for a candle flicker. You save it for when there's smoke in the air and the flames are rising. Now, what happens if you do use it? That's okay. That's what it's for. If you have to tap into your emergency fund, no shame. No guilt. You made a smart decision. You protected yourself. That's what responsible people do. But once the crisis is over, your next move is clear. Rebuild. Just like before, small steps. Automatic transfers. Intentional choices. Refill the fund so it's ready for the next emergency. Because life doesn't give you just one. And remember, it's not a failure to use your emergency fund. It's a success. It means you were prepared. It means you had a plan. It means you protected your future self. So here's your action step this week. Create your own personal emergency checklist. Write it down. Stick it on the fridge. Save it in your notes app. Let it become your rule book so when emotion rises, logic steps in. And if you've already had to dip into your fund recently, don't worry. You've already proved it works. Now just focus on building it back. In the final part of this video, we'll bring everything together. We'll recap what you've learned, give you a simple weekly routine to keep your fund strong, and leave you with a few powerful reminders to keep you motivated along the way. Let's finish strong. Let's take a moment to step back and look at everything you've just learned. You now know what an emergency fund really is and why it's so essential. It's not a luxury. It's not optional. It's the foundation of financial stability, the thing that stands between a small crisis and a full-blown disaster. You learn that the goal isn't one size fits all. For some people, 500 is life-changing. For others, 3 to 6 months of expenses is what provides peace of mind. You discovered how to calculate your own number based on your unique needs, lifestyle, and responsibilities. You learned how to start small even with a tight income and use systems like auto transfers, percentage-based savings, and habit stacking to make progress. Even when money is limited, you found out where to keep your fund, somewhere safe, liquid, and separate, somewhere that earns interest but isn't at risk. And you learned what to avoid like stocks, CDs, or your regular spending account. You heard James's story, a real example of how a modest emergency fund can be the difference between stress and security. And finally, you learned how to protect your fund, how to use it wisely, and how to say no when temptations arise. That's a lot. So now what? Now, you take action. And it starts with one small step. Here's a simple weekly plan to help you move forward no matter where you're starting. Step 1, set your first goal. Maybe it's 500, maybe $1. Negocio. Maybe one full month of essentials. Write it down. Make it real. Step 2, open a separate account. If you haven't already, set up a savings account just for your emergency fund. Label it clearly. Make it feel untouchable. Step 3, automate a small transfer. Even if it's just $10 a week, schedule it. Let the system do the heavy lifting. Step 4, review weekly. Once a week. Sit down for 5 minutes. Look at your balance. Track your progress. Celebrate every win, even the small ones. Step 5, post your progress. Not publicly, just where you can see it. On your fridge. On a sticky note. As your phone wallpaper. Let it remind you. You're building something that matters. And if you've already reached your goal, that's amazing. Now your mission is to protect it. Review your checklist. Know what's worth using it for and what's not. Here's something I want you to hear loud and clear. This is not about perfection. It's about preparation. It's not about fear. It's about freedom. When you have an emergency fund, you don't just protect your money. You protect your peace, your dignity, your power to choose. You go from asking, "What do I do?" to saying, "I've got this." That is what we're building here. Not just savings, but strength. So wherever you are right now, starting at 0, halfway there, or just topping it off, be proud. Because this is the kind of financial move that changes your future. And if this video helped you, I want to invite you to take one more small step. Subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment telling me what your first emergency fund goal is. And most of all, share this video with someone who needs it. Someone who's stressed, someone who's unsure, someone who just needs a place to start. Because we're not just building accounts. We're building a community of people who are ready to take control. And in our next video, we're going to tackle the next piece of your financial foundation. How to create a spending tracker that actually works for your daily life. We'll show you how to stay consistent, motivated, and completely in control of where your money goes. Until then, remember, you work hard for your money. Now it's time to make your money work hard for you. Thanks for watching Money Mastery Now, and I'll see you in the next one.